welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you have been here before. As always, please like, subscribe, and share this video with others who may like our content. Stay tuned for our giveaway. Details about how to enter the drawing will be given at the end of the video. Now let's get into today's story. In the quiet suburbs where peace and tranquility often reign, a sinister presence lurks in the shadows. A tranquility so deep you could hear a pin drop. The serene silence only punctuated by the distant hoot of an owl or the rustle of leaves in the wind. In this idyllic backdrop, a well-to-do family resided, their lives woven into the very fabric of the community. The Johnsons were the epitome of the American dream, complete with a white picket fence and a friendly golden retriever. The evening of the incident was just like any other. The parents off to a social engagement, leaving their 3 beautiful children in the care of a young babysitter, Cindy. Cindy, a local teenager, was a familiar face in the neighborhood. She was known for her sunny disposition and responsible nature. Her bond with the Johnson children was strong, and she had become an extended part of the family. The evening was expected to unfold like any other, with bedtime stories, a little TV, and the children tucked in for the night. The house, a grand 2-story structure, stood majestically against the backdrop of the quiet street. It was a beacon of safety and warmth, oblivious to the malevolent force that was about to disrupt its tranquility. The rooms were filled with the laughter of children, the scent of a home-cooked meal still lingering in the air. A normal evening, a normal family, a normal babysitter. But as the sun set and darkness crept in, so did a sense of unease. The shadows grew longer and the night grew eerier. The house, once full of life, fell into a hushed silence, save for the occasional giggle from the children's room or the flicker of the TV in the living room. Just as the clock struck 9, the phone rang, shattering the silence of the house. A seemingly innocent ring, a simple act of answering, but little did she know, this was the beginning of her worst nightmare. As the babysitter settled into her evening, the shrill ring of the telephone echoed through the quiet home. It was an unexpected interruption, a sharp contrast to the soothing hum of the heater and the gentle ticking of the clock. With a sense of unease, she picked up the receiver, her heart pounding a little harder in her chest. The voice on the other end was strange, almost inhuman. It was a chilling whisper, a low rasp that sent shivers down her spine. The words were simple, almost mundane, but the tone, the underlying menace in the voice, was anything but. "Have you checked on the children?" it asked, a seemingly innocent inquiry that, in this context, was terrifying. She could feel her palms growing sweaty around the phone, her breath hitching in her throat. She tried to laugh it off, a nervous giggle that sounded more like a gasp. The voice didn't respond, just hung up, leaving her with a dial tone and a growing sense of dread. The babysitter was no fool. She knew something was wrong, that this wasn't some harmless prank. But what could she do? She was alone, in a house that wasn't hers, with 2 sleeping children upstairs. She felt trapped, cornered, like a mouse in a cat's game. She considered calling the police, but what would she say? That she got a creepy phone call, that she was scared. She didn't want to seem hysterical, didn't want to cause any unnecessary panic. So, she did the only thing she could do. She checked on the children. They were asleep, safe and sound, oblivious to the terror that was slowly creeping into their sanctuary. Returning to the living room, she tried to shake off her fear, tried to convince herself that it was just a prank. But deep down, she knew better. She knew that this was just the beginning, that the real nightmare was still to come. That was the first call, but certainly not the last. The calls persisted, growing more ominous with each ring. The steady progression of these calls was like a crescendo in a symphony of terror, each one more threatening, more chilling than the last. The voice on the other end, distorted and unfamiliar, was a constant, unrelenting force of dread. The babysitter, a young girl, alone in a house that wasn't her own, felt the vice of fear tighten around her with every ring of the phone. The once comforting and familiar sound of the telephone now filled her with a bone-deep terror. The isolation was palpable. The silence between the calls, deafening. As the calls grew more frequent, so too did the babysitter's fear. The voice on the other end of the line was not just a nuisance now, it was a threat that knew her name, knew she was alone, and seemed to take perverse pleasure in her growing panic. Understandably, she decided to contact the police. It was a logical step, the right step. After all, what else could a frightened young girl do in such a situation? She was just a babysitter, not some hardened detective. She was out of her depth, floundering in a sea of terror, desperately reaching out for a lifeline. The police, ever the beacon of security and order, gave her advice. They told her to keep the caller on the line, to try and engage them in conversation. They hoped to trace the call, to find the source of this terror and snuff it out. It was a plan, a course of action, something to hold on to in the face of this relentless fear. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that the danger was not some distant, faceless entity. It was not a threat that could be traced and located miles away. No, the danger was much closer, lurking in the shadows of the very house the babysitter was in. As the next call came, the chilling words echoed on the line, "The call is coming from inside the house." Imagine the horror of that moment. The realization that the menace you fear is not lurking in the shadows outside, but is instead sharing the same four walls as you. This is the nightmare scenario that the babysitter found herself in. As the call was traced, it was discovered that the ominous voice on the other end was not calling from afar, but rather from a phone line within the house. The police, who had been working diligently to trace the calls, were stunned. Their worst fears were confirmed. The caller, the tormentor, was inside the house. The predator was among its prey. The sense of urgency that had been simmering now boiled over into a full-blown panic. Every second counted, every moment was crucial. You could almost hear the collective gasp of the officers as they processed this chilling revelation. The room filled with the frantic energy of the situation. Orders were barked out, officers scrambled into action. The squad cars, lights blazing and sirens wailing, raced towards the suburban home where the babysitter was alone, unaware of the danger she was in. The police were now racing against the clock, their hearts pounding in their chests. The dread of what they might find upon arrival hung heavy in the air. Would they be greeted by a scene of horror, or would they arrive in time to prevent a gruesome crime from taking place? The babysitter, oblivious to the imminent danger, continued with her duties, unaware that the home she was in had become a hunting ground. The predator was in the house, stalking its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The tension was unbearable. Every tick of the clock was a reminder of the impending doom. Time seemed to slow down. The world outside became a blur, and the only thing that mattered was reaching the house in time. But would they make it in time? The question hung in the air, a haunting reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. Only time would reveal the fate of the babysitter. Upon entering the house, the scene that greeted them was straight out of a horror film. A chilling tableau of terror unfolded before the officers' eyes, the very embodiment of the unthinkable. The once cozy suburban home had been transformed into a macabre display. Furniture lay overturned, remnants of a struggle perhaps, hinting at the desperate fight that must have ensued. The air was heavy with a silence that seemed to echo the screams that once filled the room. It was a silence that screamed of the unspeakable horrors that had transpired. They found the first victim in the living room, a young woman, the babysitter, her life brutally snuffed out. Her wide, terrified eyes stared into nothingness, a silent testament to her final moments of pure terror. The children she had been watching were found huddled together in the upstairs bedroom, their innocent lives tragically cut short. The grim discovery left even the most seasoned officers shaken to the core. As the initial shock subsided, the painstaking process of the investigation began. Forensic teams descended on the scene, meticulously combing through every inch of the house. They gathered evidence, trying to piece together the puzzle of the night's horrific events. They looked for clues, anything that might lead them to the person responsible for this heinous act. Yet, nothing was found. No fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon. It was as if the killer had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace of their identity or whereabouts. The investigators were left grappling with a chilling thought: they were hunting a ghost. The local community was gripped by fear. Doors were double-locked, windows tightly shut, and parents held their children a little closer. A sense of unease hung in the air as the hunt for the killer continued. But the killer was gone, leaving behind only a trail of terror. The echoes of their horrific deeds reverberated through the silent halls of the house, a grim reminder of the night when a stranger called and turned a peaceful home into a house of horrors. In the aftermath, the police were left with a house of horrors and a mystery to unravel. The grisly scene was a grim testament to the unfathomable horror that had descended upon an ordinary family home. The officers, hardened by years of service, found themselves facing an enigma that would test their resolve and expertise. The investigation began in earnest, with every possible resource deployed to scour the crime scene. The clues were sparse, a testament to the cunning of the perpetrator. A single chilling phone call, a pair of discarded gloves, a broken window, each piece of evidence, as insubstantial as they seemed, held a vital piece of the puzzle. Detectives diligently pieced together these fragments, hoping to form a coherent picture of the faceless monster they were hunting. Theories about the killer's identity and motives ran rampant. Some speculated it was a calculated act by a cold-blooded killer. Others suggested a crime of opportunity by a transient drifter. Yet no theory could fully account for the chilling brutality and meticulous planning evident in the crime. Meanwhile, the community found itself in the grip of a paralyzing fear. Parents held their children a little closer, neighbors locked their doors, and an eerie silence fell over the town. The sinister events had shattered the illusion of safety, casting long, dark shadows of doubt and suspicion. The local media added fuel to the fire, their sensational headlines echoing the town's collective dread. The police were under immense pressure to solve the case swiftly. Yet the more they searched, the more elusive the killer seemed. The faceless stranger was a phantom, slipping through their fingers like smoke. Despite their relentless pursuit, the investigators found themselves always 2 steps behind, chasing a ghost. The hunt was on, but the killer was always 1 step ahead. The echoes of the Babysitter Murders resonated far and wide, a chilling reminder of the lurking horror that can descend unbidden upon the most ordinary of lives. The investigation was far from over, and the quest for justice remained undeterred. This tale of terror, as horrific as it is, served as inspiration for the famous horror film When a Stranger Calls. The chilling events we've explored, the phone calls, the escalation, the revelation, and the subsequent investigation, all found their way into the silver screen story that sent chills down the spines of moviegoers around the globe. The real-life crimes that occurred were no doubt harrowing, but when they were dramatized for the film, they took on a new, even more disturbing dimension. The filmmakers took the core elements of the crimes, the babysitter, the stranger, and the unexpected violence, and amplified them to create a narrative that was both terrifying and compelling. They added layers of suspense and fear, transforming an already horrifying story into a thing of nightmares. The film, When a Stranger Calls, didn't just recount the events, it heightened them, using the power of cinema to magnify the terror. The phone calls in the film were more frequent, the escalation more dramatic, and the revelation even more shocking. It wasn't just a case of art imitating life, it was art distorting life, twisting it into something even darker. In doing so, the film had a profound impact on audiences. It played into their deepest fears, making them question their safety and the people around them. It was a stark reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places and that not all strangers are harmless. The film also sparked a wave of interest in the real-life crimes, leading many to delve deeper into the case. This fascination with the darker side of reality, coupled with the cinematic dramatization, ensured the story's enduring place in pop culture. The film immortalized the crimes, turning real-life horror into cinematic terror. As we continue to explore the legacy of the Babysitter Murders, we see how a horrific chapter in real-life history was transformed into a timeless tale of terror on the big screen. The Babysitter Murders left a lasting mark on the community and the world of horror. The repercussions echoed far beyond the immediate visceral horror of the crimes themselves. The community, once a safe haven, was forever changed. Parents triple-checked locks, scrutinized babysitters, and every phone call sent a shiver down the spine. The phrase, "the call is coming from inside the house," became a chilling mantra, a symbol of the fear that had seeped into every home. In the world of horror films, the Babysitter Murders found an unsettling place in the collective psyche. Movies like When a Stranger Calls capitalized on this fear. The terror of the familiar turned monstrous. It was the dread of realizing that the danger, the monster, was not outside but inside, lurking in the shadows of your own home. The Babysitter Murders, a chilling reminder that sometimes the call is coming from inside the house. Thanks for staying with us. Until the end of the video, we will be giving away a hand-painted Jason Voorhees-style hockey mask made by a special effects makeup artist. Once we reach our goal of 100 subscribers, we will randomly select one subscriber as the winner. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and you will be entered into the drawing. As always, please share this video with friends. Did you ever get spooked out home alone babysitting? Tell us all about it in the comments below.